What's up, y'all? It's me, it's your boy Asmongold, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about patch 6.2. Now, a lot of you guys have asked about the different features and I guess like my opinion on them, and I was originally just going to do this video about flying, just about flying, talking about the pros and the cons, and just kind of because, I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but I was really glad that they were going to get rid of flying in Wars of Draenor, and I've partially changed my mind on that, but I partially haven't, and I did want to talk about that, and we will talk about that in this video, but I also want to use this video to talk about a lot of other things that are being added in patch 6.2, and kind of my opinions on them. And so I do want to say that this is probably going to be kind of a long video, and I guess people can tell that because it says how long the videos are on YouTube. But it'll probably also be borderlining on a rant, so I hope that it doesn't really get too boring, but we'll just get right into it. Now, the first thing I do want to talk about is flying. Now, flying has... they haven't really said that we're not going to have it, but I think that it would probably be like on the top line of the patch notes. Now, a lot of people... what Blizzard originally said is that they will add flying back when they feel that the community really wants it back, or something to that nature. Now, one thing is that if you go into general forums, almost anybody who supports not having flying is like downvoted into oblivion, and anybody who says I want to be able to fly is upvoted into the heavens. But the point is that, of course, you know, the general forums are like 100 upvotes on something on a general forums is a really big deal, but it's really only like maybe 200 or 300 people. If you're assuming like upvotes and downvotes, and so that's actually a very small minority of people. I know. MMO Champion did a poll, and I think it came out, I think it was like 60-40 pro flying, and 40% that didn't like flying. People kind of how they figured it turned out in Wars of Draenor. Again, that wasn't really that many people, and there are millions of people who play World of Warcraft, and I really think that the overall sentiment is that a lot of people don't really like in 5.4, the last patch of Mists of Pandaria, the majority of players spent I would say 85% of their time either in Shrine of the Seven Stars, which is like the Alliance capital. I don't remember what the Horde one was. Just sitting in the main city, checking the auction house or doing whatever else. Or over in the Timeless Isle. And that's actually like Mists of Pandaria content. Like, of course, they're doing like old raids and everything else. But in terms of Mists of Pandaria content, probably most of the time in the main city and then a lot of time in Timeless Isle. Not really a lot of other things. And Timeless Isle didn't have flying, and so... I thought that it would actually be really good if, the whole continent of Draenor didn't have flying, and I originally thought that the reason that they weren't going to have flying was because the textures weren't polished on the outside of the mountains. I actually turned out to be wrong about that because I went around in the alpha version and the beta version, everything really does seem pretty polished, especially since you have things like Aviana's Feather. Now, the other reason that a lot of people are kind of halfway expecting to have flying in 6.2 is because Tannin Jungle was going to be released. Now, I do want to talk about Tannin Jungle just for a couple of minutes because I've been spending a lot of time on the PTR, and as you guys probably know because I've been making a lot of videos about it, but I've been spending a lot of time on the PTR, and I've really liked Tannin Jungle. I enjoy the zone a lot. I think there's a lot of depth into the zone, and there's also... like a lot of variation. Like the Bleeding Hollow area really seems different than like the Iron Horde docks, and that really seems different than like the Throne of Kil'jaeden. And I really like how all these different zones are all part of the same thing, but they're all very different. And I think Tannin Jungle is by far my favorite zone that Wards of Draenor has. Maybe Gorgrond is probably might be my favorite, but it's either Tannin Jungle or Gorgrond. And so I really do like Tannin Jungle, and I'm happy that we had it, even though, I think that one thing that's really happened, and I think a lot of other people can kind of agree with this, is that the goalposts have kind of been moved quite a few times here. At the beginning of the expansion, we were told that we would have Bladespire and Caribor as the main capital cities. That turned out to not be true. I don't really know why that was. I think that, the best reason that I could come up with is that well, besides like they didn't have the resources that they didn't want to, but the best reason besides that is that they plan on blowing up either Caribor or Bladespire, I think probably Caribor, throughout the expansion. And so I think that maybe if that happens, okay, that kind of makes sense. But either way, it was very disappointing for me as an Alliance player to go through Caribor and see how great this the city is, and to know that it will basically be inconsequential in the entire in the greater gameplay thing. I mean, if you go over to Caribor, like if your Alliance really go over to Caribor, like I mean, they put a lot of work into that, and it's real disappointment to see that go to waste. Really, I mean, because there's no real incentive to go over there. I mean, that is a really, really great zone. And I honestly, it's probably one of the best cities that they've ever created, in my opinion. It's better than Stormwind. But in terms of aesthetics, in my opinion. Anyways, so that's one of the things that, of course, the goalposts were moved on, and the Tannin Jungle is another one. Also, Farallon was on the. Farallon is, by the way, Netherstorm before the Sundering happened, where I guess like Outland, Draenor went from Draenor to Outland. Farallon was actually on the map, and it was I guess like to the top right of Gorgrond, and so I don't really know if Farallon was supposed to be introduced in the original, I guess like whenever Warlords of Draenor would release. I didn't really know if that was their plan to release Farallon at that time. I would kind of assume that they were going to release it in 6.1. Like at that point in alpha version, that's kind of what I expected. But we're not even really sure if that's going to happen to begin with. But I do know that they've probably done a lot of work on it, and so I would halfway expect to see that in 6.3. Especially, I do think that probably in 6.3, this is going to be the last tangent I go on. We'll probably go over to Sargeras' tomb, because that's where Gul'dan died originally, and we'll have to kill Gul'dan in Sargeras' tomb. And of course, like what better way to get over there than our ships that we're creating with our shipyard. Anyway, I don't really know if that's going to happen or not, but that's what I'm going to place my money on. Anyway, the next thing, of course, oh yeah. Anyway, sorry, I didn't want to get off topic too much. Tannin Jungle, the flying thing. So the whole thing is that maybe they didn't have flying implemented, so people wouldn't fly over Tannin Jungle to see that it was unfinished and everything like that. That seems to be kind of true, but you can still do that with Aviana's Feather and also with Farsight and Eagle Eye, and so I don't really know really if that really accomplished the goal by getting rid of flying. Now, a lot of people also say that there are a lot of jumping puzzles in Warlords of Draenor that I guess they're marginalized, and they don't matter whenever you're able to fly, right? Like the thing in Shadowmoon Valley where you have to jump over the rocks and to get to the Hypnotoad, and then you kill him, and then you get the thing to like make critters your slaves or something like that. Well, anyway, obviously if you have a flying mount, that's not really a big deal to get over there. And personally, what I read, somebody suggested this, and I think it's a pretty good idea, is if they are going to re-implement flying, I would like to see it. If they don't really want to just give it to everybody, I'd like to see it as like a thing, as a reward for players who've like completed the Lore Master, and they've completed like killing all the rares in the zones, and just all of the different exploration achievements. And after you've completed all of those, you'd be able to get flying in the zone. So it's kind of actually a real achievement. So like you see somebody flying, and it's like, hey, that guy probably has no life. But anyway, you see that, and of course, a lot of people would that would be motivation for them to go and do all the content, of course. Anyway, so I do think that probably they should add back flying at some point. Like 6.2 seemed to be like logical point to add back flying, and I'm actually kind of surprised that they're not going to. Of course, they haven't really created a actual stance on this, which is another thing that's kind of bothered me. Is there have been a lot of questions that people have had throughout the entire expansion and even before that, and they've really kind of fallen on deaf ears. Today I read somebody posted, they sent me a link to a thread, and it was on the PvP forums, and it was somebody complaining that they weren't able to, they were kind of like challenging like high-level Gladiator players to go back and, without their connections that they made with their friends and everything, go back and get Gladiator again, because what they're pretty much saying is that the top echelon of PvP is a very small amount of people, and unless you're in that clique, it's very hard for you to actually break through that glass ceiling and actually get your Gladiator titles. And I do think that that's very true. Back whenever I did a lot of RBGs in Cataclysm and a little bit in Mists of Pandaria, and there's actually a very small amount of people who kind of play with each other, and unless you know people and you have friends, it's very hard for you to really kind of like get above that. Basically, it's always about like 100 points under the top season cutoff. So like 100 points under Hero of the Alliance, 100 points under Gladiator. It's really hard for you to make that last push because, of course, another big thing that has to do with this is boosting. And a lot of the different players who are PvPers, if you go to like Twitch TV and you look at a lot of PvP streams, you can scroll down and see like the information about the stream, and you see like the about, the donate thing, of course, that everybody has. And then next to that, there's usually, honestly, I really do want to say usually here with a lot of the higher level PvPers, you'll usually see some sort of a link to a website that facilitates buying rating or buying some sort of service in the game with real life money. And I do think that Blizzard really needs to put a stop to that, because like whenever I first, like when it's like season 2, right? I really had a fighting chance at getting Gladiator. Like stupid 16, 17-year-old Asmongold, who's like not even, like I just got out of the, I just got out of my clicking phase, okay? And I was actually going to maybe get Gladiator in season 2, and I didn't though, unfortunately. But I was actually really, really close to getting it. And the main reason that obviously, I mean, I don't really see like another 16-year-old, kid that's just like kind of new to the game and, really cares about it. Like you have to, like the learning curve is so much higher, and the amount of people that you need to know and everything like that in order to kind of break into that, and get that reward is so high that it's very daunting. And in my opinion, I don't really think that it's very good for the game to have the entire PvP ladder controlled by a very small amount of people, if for no other reason than, the way they control it is against the terms of service. So I do hope that what they could do is they could implement like some sort of a thing where you could only have like you could only get Gladiator once per account or something like that per season. And I would really like to see that happen, because if somebody's got like 4 or 5 Gladiator titles on one account, obviously that takes away Gladiator titles from other players. And also whenever you're able to pretty much control the ladder, because of course all of these other people, they all have a common goal, and the common goal is of course to make money, basically, because they have these boosting services. And the easier it is for people to get Gladiator on their own, the harder it is for these people to sell boosting services. So again, it's in their best interest to make Gladiator very hard for people to get. And I think that this is something that you guys always should remember, and I think this is kind of a life lesson, and I do want to say this right now. If something benefits somebody, they're probably going to try and do it. Like just pretty much as a general rule, see who stands to gain from what, and then it's pretty easy to tell, why whoever is doing whatever. And I think this is a really good example of that. And so if you have a bunch of different alts who are, who you're very good at, like, I mean, let's say I'm a warrior, and I actually, in another universe, I'm actually good at PvP. And I have 11 different characters that are 28, 50, okay, somewhere around there. And it's not really that hard for me to do, because I play with the same people. And so I've locked down all these different Gladiator spots, making it that much harder for anybody else who's like coming up and trying to PvP. I'm making it that much harder for that person to get in there and actually get what they really rightfully would have if the system wasn't effectively being broken by a small amount of people doing it for a financial gain, which is a huge problem, and it makes WoW PvP even more of a joke than it already is. And I hope that Blizzard does something about this, but I don't really think that they will. I don't know why. I have no idea what's going on, but it really bothers me, and that's kind of why I've talked about it so long. And PvP in general, honestly, has really kind of gotten it's been sidelined, man, and it really bothers me. I used to love the PvP. If you guys look at my armory, I have like tons of achievements, like Battle Master. I got the server first Battle Master, man. Like, and that felt awesome. I was one of the only 2200 rated warriors on my old PvE server, and that was a big deal back then. Not a lot of people PvP'd, and so it was really hard for me to find people. And I finally found people, finally made that jump. And in Burning Crusade, man, I got the fucking season 4 weapon. And oh my god, that was the best fucking day of my life. I remember I went to college, man. Because I was a freshman then, and I went to college and I got a math test back. And I pick it up and it's like a 37, right? And I'm just like, fuck it, dude. I'm getting the Brutal Gladiators decapitator today. I don't care about this, And I was really, really happy about that. And I mean, even when I failed this math class, I ended up dropping, so it's no big deal. But at the same time, like any other day, that would have really fucked my day up. But that one day, man, nothing could mess up my day. And I went home and I bought that weapon. Oh, it was the best. And I really I don't know if I'm really going to see that. I don't think a lot of people are really going to be able to see that now. And also, there aren't really that many incremental rewards in PvP anymore. The only real incremental reward you get is whenever you get 27,000 conquest points, you get another type of gear that really has nothing to do. Like any of my characters, like any of my terrible characters have a 30,000 conquest cap, and so I can get the elite gear without even trying. I'm not really saying the 2200 rating requirement was better or worse. I think that takes a lot longer to explain, but I do think that there are almost no rewards in PvP. And one thing that I am glad about, of course, is that PvP gear is semi good in raids. It's semi good which is a lot better than it used to be, which was completely terrible. And so I do think that that's good, but at the same time, like we have not gotten any new arenas. There have been no new arenas added in Warlords of Draenor. There have been no new battlegrounds added in Warlords of Draenor. And on top of that, botting is, in my opinion, from my experience, at an all-time high. And all of the bots run the same script. And I don't know how this is hard for them to just download the same script. And any bots that, I guess mimic the same movements are auto-banned or something like that. I don't know why that's not happening, but it's not. And so, if you're a casual PvPer, you really have no chance of getting Gladiator unless you get into this whole thing. And also in a rated battlegrounds, and this all kind of really, guys, I want to say this really all ties into 6.2 because they can change this whenever they want, and it's really bothering me that it's not being changed. Like there's no real, like it's not even really being acknowledged hardly. Like DDoSing is a huge thing in rated battlegrounds because there's such a small pool of people to play with. People play with each other, and so you just have to have one person that gets like 1,000 people's IP addresses, and that's a huge problem. And Blizzard could of course fix that by making a server side voice chat program for the game that actually works, because the one they have now doesn't work at all. And that would be a really good way to stop, or at least prevent, a lot of the DDoSing problems by having an alternate voice chat service besides Skype. And so I really hope they do that. And so there's been no arenas, no battlegrounds. The PvP gear, guys, I'm going to say, I really do like the PvP gear. And like the gear in Warlords of Draenor is, in my opinion, the coolest gear since, honestly, I think it's even cooler than the Wrath of the Lich King gear, honestly. I think it's just as cool as the Burning Crusade gear, and I think that's probably like the best part of the expansion is how cool the gear is. Like the warrior gear, it's like you're either like, if you're a PvE warrior, you're a walking Iron Star, and if you're a PvP warrior, you're like a transformer. Like it's really, really cool. And I know a lot of the other specs have something similar. It's like, like Warlongs stuff like the Gul'dan shoulders. It's awesome, right? But, of course, that's really kind of the only thing that PvPers get is this cool armor set. And it's disappointing to me to see PvP kind of sidelined as a, like an afterthought. And a lot of people do play PvP. I know that I saw like I think this is the last thing I'm going to say about PvP before I get too into it. I saw like a graph of like the item level distribution of all the different players at the end of Mists of Pandaria, and I think it was like 14 or 9% of all players had the exact item level of 550, which is of course the item level of Prideful gear in Mists of Pandaria. And so of course that's how many people just have that specific item level, and of course most of those people have that specific item level because they have full PvP gear. And there are a lot of people who just PvP because they don't have enough time. That used to be me, whenever I was in high school. Sorry, I wasn't really able to raid on a really really tight schedule and everything, and so I was really only able to PvP. And so there were a lot of people like that. And so for a kid like that, like if I was playing now, it's like I can't really get into and like meet people and do this other stuff unless I am trying to sell boosts or something like that, or buy a boost to somebody. It's very it's I don't know, it's like really kind of demoralizing in my opinion, and I think it is probably for a lot of new people in PvP. And honestly, if you're a new PvPer, man, tell me what you think. Tell me, like, you're trying to get into PvP, like, what are your experiences? Because I really do want to know. I'm not a new PvPer. I've been PvPing for a long time. If I want to find teammates, it would be easy for me because I have my channel and a lot of people know me. And so I can't really use my own experiences anymore. So I need to hear from you guys how you feel about that. And the next thing I really want to talk about is naval missions. Now, if you guys don't know, naval missions are going to be the new follower missions for patch 6.2, and they're also going to be the way that you get the mythic caches and the heroic and the normal caches of the Hellfire Citadel raid gear. And that is unfortunate to me, in my opinion, that they are going to continue doing those little boxes, because it will kind of make doing the shipyard and the naval missions semi-required. And I'm doing that in air quotes because, of course, nothing is required. You can go ahead and do any raid that you want without your shoulders on if you just don't like the way your shoulders look. But of course they are basically required, aren't they? Because you're not really going to do that. It's like, it's a very big handicap, and you put a handicap on yourself by not doing this certain thing. And that's also on the tails again of Blizzard not really talking to people, because at the beginning of the expansion and before the expansion was released, we were told that garrisons were not going to be required. Now, In order to get your legendary ring, you also are going to have to do naval missions, I think. I'm not entirely sure, do not quote me on that, but I'm fairly certain that you do need to do naval missions for your legendary ring, and I am certain that you have to do naval missions in order to start the Tannin Jungle questline, which is what I think ties into the legendary ring. And that's really kind of a disappointment, and the biggest disappointment to me for the naval missions in general is that I don't think that we're going to be able to sail our ships around. I remembered, sail your ships. That's the verb, sail your ship. I don't think that we're even going to be able to sail our ships around. And so, like, we have like all these really cool ships that we've created, and we spent tons of garrison resources on, and you can't even sail the ship around. And I don't know if a lot of you guys have ever done the quest over in Thousand Needles, but there's one quest in Thousand Needles, and it gives you like your own little boat. And I was talking to my mom about this because she still has her own. She still has her boat because she didn't like. I don't think she wanted to turn in the quest or something, just so she could keep her boat and what do you call it? Sail it around. I guess it's not really sailing because it's a steamboat. But anyway, like move her boat around Thousand Needles, and it was really cool. And I think, I remember it too because it was a really neat thing. And so I was thinking, maybe okay, they're going to add this in, and there's going to be, this is going to tie into Farallon and everything. But I don't really know if we're going to see that happening. I see no indication and no evidence that we're actually going to be able to sail our ships around. I think that really the shipyard is just another glorified command table, and that's disappointing to see. But I don't really know if that's true or not. And so I can't really say, but I really do hope that they add some sort of function where you can actually sail your ship around and maybe go to a couple of little cool islands, obviously not in 6.2, but in the future. Like, I would really have a lot of fun with that. Another thing, the next thing, and this is going to be this is a minor thing, but it leads into a bigger thing. And this is going to be about pet battles. Now, pet battles in 6.2, like you guys know, I do a lot of the pet battles. I don't even know why. I never even liked Pokemon. I mean, I liked it because it was the only thing that I had on the Game Boy, right? And I played it all the time because it was the only thing there was, and it was a cool thing to do. But honestly, Pokemon would make me so mad. Like, I would beat myself up because I'd lose to the Elite Four. Charmander dies, punch yourself in the face. And that was just my life, right? Third grade life. And anyway, I do these pet battles, and I do enjoy them, but there are two things that are being added for pet battles, it seems to me, and patch 6.2. They're adding a new vendor next to the menagerie who's going to sell basically new stuff for a lot of pet charms, like a ton of pet charms. So guys, by the way, save up, like, I'm not even kidding, like 1,000 pet charms for 6.2 if you want to buy all the stuff. There's a toy and a bunch of new pets, and so FYI. Anyway, so besides the pet charms here, there's also going to be dailies out in Tannin Jungle, and there's going to be different legendary pets that you can go around and fight. And I was going to make a video for those, but the pets didn't transfer over, and so we've got that on standby right now. But obviously the point is that there are pet battles, and they're adding new stuff for pet battles. And what that really is pet battles is something that was added in Mists of Pandaria, and it adds to, like, I guess the breadth of the different options and things that you can do in the game. And I think that is, in one way, one of the downfalls, in a way, of the game is they've created all of these different progression paths and things that you can do in the game. You've got your garrisons, you've got your solo PvE, you've got your PvE raiding, you've got your dungeons, and you've got your pet battles, and then you've got just tons of other stuff like farming, and all these different things. There are different functions and methods that people play the game, and everybody kind of plays it in their own way. Now, back in Burning Crusade, one of the reasons that so many different things were able to be added is that there really was only a couple of different focuses. There was, raiding and dungeons, and maybe a couple of other things in between, but, PvP also. But they've added in, like, pet battles, and so pet battles always needs to be updated over, I don't know, like every few patches. Make some new pets and, keep those people happy. And so there are so many different things, that the depth of each one of these different functions and activities is very minimal. And I think that the biggest example I can show you guys with that is the solo PvE player progression path. As soon as you hit level 100, you're pretty much able to get 610 gear, if for no other way, just going on the off chance and buying it. You get enough 610 gear in order to get to 615. You queue for LFR a few times, and you finally get to 635 after you do heroics in the meantime. Queue for BRF, we call it BRF LFR, and then you're pretty much done, honestly, unless you want to start raiding and everything else like that. But for a solo player who's not really interested in raiding, there's there's a really, like, as soon as you hit 100, like, you hit the ceiling of your progression path really, really quick. And I think that that's like, my mom is one of those players, and she's been really frustrated about that too. And I really hope that they add in like some more real passive progression for solo players. And I think it's a real disservice because I think there's a huge majority of people that, like, all of my real life friends, and this is my example, is that obviously, like, I'm interfacing with you guys. You guys, a lot of you guys are raiders, serious players, watching videos on YouTube about the game. That's kind of a serious player. But a lot of people are not really that serious. They play for fun. And once they realize that there's kind of like a ceiling that their character can really meet, and they've already met the ceiling, the only two options are really just quit the game or make a new character. And back in Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusade, and especially Vanilla, there was a lot more, I guess, like, character progression that you could go through before you had to rely on other people and start joining raids and everything like that. But now there's only about like 1 or 2 steps that you really need to take, and those steps are really easy to take. And honestly, you don't even really have to put a lot of effort into taking the steps. You just have to receive the gear. And so that's something that's really kind of disappointing. And I do hope that they add in some sort of like, really strong, I guess, like, player progression. I was hoping that garrisons were that way, but it doesn't really seem that they are. Now, the next thing is the Legendary Ring. Now, a lot of people have asked me about the Legendary Ring. Now, it seems very obvious to me that one of the things that they want to do with the Legendary Ring is, like, make it like a group effect. And so, like, everybody, it's like, Captain Planet, by our powers combined, we're going to create the magic rainbow of death, and it's going to go right through Archimonde's heart, and he's going to be dead, right? And obviously, I think that's really pretty much what's going to happen, because legendary rings are extremely powerful, and I don't really know, like, honestly, I think that they're gonna not really double people's damage, but they're gonna increase people's damage to a huge amount, to where if you don't have a legendary ring, this is the problem with the cloaks and Mists of Pandaria, is if you don't have a cloak, your DPS potential is just so much lower, and you're just not really able to meet that DPS potential. And I think back whenever they had class-specific and I guess, like, type-specific legendaries, like the last one was, of course, the daggers. What were they? The Fangs of the Father with rogues. And so even though rogues had these Fangs of the Father, everybody else was balanced around that also. And so even rogues without Fangs of the Father were still pretty much okay. It's the same with Shadowmourne. Shadowmourne gave people a big DPS boost, but if you were like a mage or something like that, you really didn't have to worry about it. And now, if you want to level an alt or do anything like that, you pretty much, I think you're really going to have this legendary ring, because everybody else is going to be counting on you to have it, so everybody can use it at the same time, because it has like a stacking group bonus effect. And I hope that they change that, honestly, because I think it's just going to cause all kinds of problems, and it's going to boost people's damage up to like this ridiculous amount that I don't really think is, like, how much longer, I mean, will we even have to wait till the next expansion to get another item squish? It's like really what it comes down to. And that's really kind of weird, in my opinion, but I don't really like the way the Legendary Ring proc works. And also, like, one thing that is, like, kind of, I know, like, my friend, my buddy Austin and we were talking about this, and he was saying, and I partially agree with this and I partially don't, and, the fact that, like, now in Warlords of Draenor, you're addressed by a lot of, like, the different players in the game, and NPCs in the game, not players, but NPCs, as like commander, as like champion, or something like that. And back in I guess Vanilla and in Burning Crusade, you were addressed as an adventurer or something like that. And of course, the word choice here makes it seem like the story is revolving around your character, and your character is the main part of this story, whereas before you were kind of part of a larger world, which I think is a lot better for facilitating an MMO experience. And another example of this is a legendary item. Like, how legendary can an item be if everybody gets it? And I do think that scarcity does create value, especially with items like that, and especially with people who care about that kind of stuff. And I used to be just like somebody, man, if I saw somebody with better gear than me, like, that was motivation. And I know that there are a lot of people like that now. And when everybody can get a legendary, it's not really legendary, is it? Because everybody can have it. And whenever you have, like, these really, really awesome things like Shadowmourne or something like that, if you see somebody with Shadowmourne, it's like, oh, fuck yeah, it's awesome. But now, like, I mean, in Mists of Pandaria, if you see somebody without the legendary cloak, you're like, why don't you have the legendary cloak? And yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of a weird way to look at the legendary items. Legendary items are supposed to be these, like, these are like the Warglaves of Azeroth, like Illidan's legendary, Warglaves that you have. I mean, like, that's a legendary item. The Sulfuris, the Hand of Ragnaros, that's amazing. A Tish, like, the the staff that Medivh used to like summon orcs through the dark portal, and I mean like these are awesome things, like Shadowmoor even, the what do you call it, and in Fangs of the Father, the daggers that are supposed to kill Deathwing the Destroyer, and what's I don't even remember the legendary cloak name for warriors and or any of them honestly in Mists of Pandaria, and I think it kind of waters down the value of really the legendary. And I really hope that I think that probably in 6.3, this is like my opinion, is that they're going to add in a new legendary item that's going to drop in the instance as well as has any legendary rings. But don't quote me on that. Now I do have like, what is it? I think I have like, yeah, two more things that I'm going to talk to you guys about, and then we're gonna stop the video because this has already gotten pretty long. The first one is going to be Mythic Dungeons. Now, I originally did a video about Mythic Dungeons saying that they were very easy, and we went over there and we outgeared them. And so, of course, we were easy. People said, oh, you're dumb because you said that they're too easy. And okay, so all right, that's fine. That's a fair criticism. So we went back and we did them. Was it a couple of days ago? And the scaling mechanism actually was in place. The scaling was 660, and so the intended item level for Mythic Dungeons right now on PTR is 660. We went in there and we killed the last boss, Bloodmaw Slagmines, in less than 45 seconds. And I know, yeah, it was with 200s with heroism, but still, that is a ridiculous speed to kill them. There was really never any point that we thought we would ever wipe on a boss. We had trouble on like one trash pack because we pulled the entire thing without cooldowns and like without even thinking about it, and we still pretty much got through it just fine. And that's with scaled down gear right at 660. And so anybody, of course, higher than that is going to have even less trouble than we did. And another thing with the Mythic Dungeons is that there's no like new mechanics. There's nothing new with the Mythic Dungeons, and so it's like you're basically scaled down and just doing another heroic. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really think that that's very fun. I know that everybody that I talked to in my group was pretty much like, oh, great, and I think like somebody like got a headache halfway through because it did. I mean, how many times have you guys done Bloodmaw Slagmines? Too many, right? And doing it one more time, and just for higher level gear, I don't really see why they can't implement a couple more mechanics. Just, I mean, for nothing else, just to keep it interesting, man. Come on, like, I mean, doing the same thing on a different difficulty is not, it's not new content. And I just keep seeing so much old content being put out again as new content, and it's not new content, it's old content. It's things people have already done. They've done them a dozen times, and now they're going to have to do them a dozen more times. And if they don't do them, then they're going to be putting themselves behind. And so you're just kind of stuck in this constant loop of doing the same thing over and over and over again, but it's just a little bit harder. It's just a little bit harder. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like that type of progression. And the last thing I do want to talk to you guys about is the Time Walker dungeons. Now, I talked about this a little bit yesterday because I just put out the video about this, but I did figure that since this is a 6.2 video, in general, I do want to talk about that just for a second. The Time Walker dungeons are extremely easy, and I do think that we were completely, what's the word for it? Like the stat scaling was completely wrong. We were obviously getting too many stats of whatever it was. But even if the dungeons were like 3 times harder, they would be still too easy. Honestly, it was very, very easy to do. And of course, the incentivization is really like one of the main, I guess, like things about 6.2 in general is that there's not really a lot of incentives to go back and do these mythic dungeons unless you're in the specific, type of, I guess, like gear level. And the Time Walker dungeons are even worse because, what's the probability that you're going to want to go back and get 640 gear, and it just happens to be the point where you need 640 gear. This is your time of the month. Those 3 days that Time Walker dungeons are available, and now finally you're able to get that 640 gear. That's a very small window of people who are actually going to benefit from this. And so I do hope that they create some sort of, and I do know that, by the way, Time Walker dungeons will reward you with like a daily 690 or 680 piece if you do one. Okay, that's cool and great, but again, it's still 640 year. Besides that, what's the reason of really doing more than one? And you want people to go back and do the old content. It's fun. It was great. I like doing it again, and hopefully they will. But I don't really think so. Hopefully Mythic Time Walker dungeons or something like that will come into play, but I'm not really expecting it. And so anyway, guys, these are my opinions about 6.2, about flying, PvP, and everything like that. And I talked a lot about PvP because there's been a lot of stuff that I've wanted to talk about it, and I've wanted to talk about PvP. And hopefully it wasn't really too long. Let's see. Oh boy. Yeah, it was too long. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, so anyway, I know some of you guys do like the longer videos, and so this is for you, I guess. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you share my sentiments, I'm not gonna say, oh, post my video everywhere, but like try and ask Blizzard, like on the forums. Like I've made a lot of posts on the forums asking, like what's gonna happen with this, what's gonna happen with that, and really give them your feedback. And if you feel differently than I do, give that feedback. Give whatever feedback you can, because that's the only real way that things will ever change or anything. Because if you just sit there and you're just mad about it, and nobody's really going to know. You got to make sure people know that you're mad about it, and hopefully something will change because of that. So anyway, guys, yeah, that's really I think that's really pretty much it. 6.2. My closing thoughts. I'm excited, but I wish I was a lot more excited, and so that's really what it comes down to. So that's pretty much all I've got. Thanks for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.